Good morning. When I came to the office this morning, I looked outside my window, and it reminded me of a time, long time ago, a Christmas Eve, many years ago. When I looked out the window, it was a crisp, cold day, snow on the ground, much like today. A little bit of dark gray with some flashes of sun coming out. It reminded me on that Christmas Eve, many years ago, that I got a phone call while I was on opportunity time at our office on Craig Street in the Oakland area. That call came in about 11 o'clock in the morning, and it was from a Mr. Maurice Fountain. And Mr. Fountain told me he was just promoted at the J&L steel plant in Hazelwood, on the river where the plant was. He was just promoted to superintendent. And because of that, and because it was Christmas, he wanted to buy a home for his family for Christmas. The ultimate Christmas gift. It's still the ultimate Christmas gift. Better than furs, better than cars, better than jewelry, better than technology and things. It was just the ultimate Christmas gift. To this day is still a home for your family. So we decided, he said to me, he said, I've admired a house at the corner of Elizabeth and Johnston Avenue in Hazelwood, up from the plant where the mill was. And he said he lived in the Glen Hazel projects at the top of Hazelwood. And he's admired this house for the last 4 months as he's driven by it every day going to work. And he said, could they take a look at it and could they buy it for Christmas? I said, I'm your man. So I then called and we set a time to meet at the house at 2 o'clock. I called Mr. and Mrs. Kirapopoulos, the owners. They had bought a house from me that summer in Baldwin, across the river, and they put their house on the market in late August, right before I went back to college. So I called Mr. and Mrs. Kirapopoulos, got Mrs. Kirapopoulos on the phone, and I said, I hate to do this because it's Christmas Eve, but is any chance I could show your house this afternoon? I have a buyer who's very interested in it. He works at the J&L plant and was just promoted today. So she said, well, it's fine because this afternoon because we're Orthodox and we don't practice Christmas for 2 weeks. So we'd be happy to have them come over this afternoon. Now, Mrs. Kirapopoulos questioned me because I hadn't talked to her in 4 months, although one of the things we should do, and one of the things the agents that I signed the listing to that when I went back to school, you've got to talk to your sellers every week to keep them informed. You've got to talk to them every week to keep them informed. So I had to remind Mrs. Kirapopoulos sort of who I was, that my sign, my name, was on their front porch. It was an Insel brick house. Many of you have sold Insel brick houses, many of you don't know what Insel brick is. It was an Insel brick house. If you take 6 roofing nails and put that sign up on the house, on the Insel brick, it stays there forever. In fact, if you go past the house on Johnston Avenue, it's still there. You can't, the sign itself is blurred around, but the actual sign is still there. So I said, I'm going to come over by 2 o'clock. So I called Mr. Fountain back, confirmed a 2 o'clock appointment. I confirmed it with his wife, who I had their phone number at home, confirmed it. So I pulled up at 2 o'clock and met the Fountains at the house. It was Mr. and Mrs. Fountain and 2 little girls, probably 6 and 4, all dressed up, and lovely couple and family. So we walked up the steps to the house, front porch. House was a basic side entrance hall, living room, dining room, kitchen, upstairs, 3 bedrooms and bath, and on the 3rd floor was 2 bonus rooms. Remember that bonus room thing? So I introduced Mr. and Mrs. Kirapopoulos to the Fountains, get the Fountains into the house and tried to show them the house. What I always do with my sellers is try to tell them that while I'm showing the house, if they want to go out and take a walk, look at their yard, get in the car and drive around for a half hour, 45 minutes, it's a good idea. Because I don't think it's possibly good to have the seller and buyer in the house at the same time. It makes the house more crowded and questions come up and things. So they went out and took a walk. So we slowly went through the house, showed them the 1st floor, showed them the 2nd floor, looked at the bonus rooms up on the 3rd floor, 2 rooms up there, and came back down through the house again, through the 1st floor, because that's the main part, through the kitchen, into the basement area, looked at the basement, came back up, went back into the kitchen area, looked around the dining room, and went back out the back door to look at the backyard, which was in snow. And in the backyard, they turned to the house, as virtually everyone who's ever bought a house from me, everybody who's ever bought a house from you does, okay? When they're ready to buy the house They ask, they're in the yard, usually in front of the house, back of the house, and they ask you 3 questions. 3 questions. Whether you're having an open house and somebody gets interested in the house, whether you're having you're showing 10 houses a day and they get interested in one house. They ask you these 3 questions. So I tell our agents, always have the right answers for these 3 questions. The first question is, they say to me, we've admired this house, as we told you, for the last 4 months. Why is it not sold? Because they're figuring, if they love the house, why hasn't somebody else sold it? So you have to have an answer for that. Could be a price reduction just happened. It could be the sellers weren't motivated. It could be that the answer I gave is because I listed the house in August and went to John Carroll University 2 hours away and wasn't able to work on getting the house sold, but came back this week to get the house sold, okay? But you got to have an answer for that question. You know, why hasn't the house sold? Or how long has it been on the market? You got to have that kind of, you got to have the answer ready. So the house has been on the market 6 months. You can't dodge that. You got to say it's been on 6 months, but here's why we think it hasn't sold, okay? The second question, and you're going to get this every time, so you have to have an answer also, okay? Why does the seller want to sell, okay? And 99% of the times, whether it's your listener or somebody else listening, you've got to have that answer because that's the question that's going to come up, okay? Why does the seller want to sell, okay? And in this case, I told you earlier, they'd bought another house in Baldwin. So they were a motivated seller, to say the least, but they bought a house in Baldwin and wanted to move there. And the third question they ask, and words of these effect, how much do you think the house is worth? How much do you think the seller will take? They're going to ask you that question. And you have to have a realistic answer to that, okay? Now it's easy a lot of time. You can't say to them, well, the asking price is, this house was $14,900. The asking price is $14,900 and that's it, okay? You have to give an answer, okay? Now usually many times the answer is you've shown them other houses and you talk about the other houses they didn't like, and what they sold for, what they were for sale for, and compare that house with the house you're talking about. So you come up with a price that way. The second, in this case, I hadn't shown them any other houses, so I had to come up with a reason why they should pay a certain number, okay? Now I did know houses that sold in the general neighborhood, even though they didn't see them. And I told them about a couple houses that sold within 3 or 4 blocks, very, very similar houses than what they sold for, okay? So I was able to give them a range of what houses like this house sold for in the neighborhood already. Then I said to them, we're asking $14,900. Now that's the price of the house, not the commission. That's the price of the house, $14,900. And so I said to them, you can buy this house for $14,900, and the seller will pay the closing costs, and we can get you a loan. We can get you an FHA interfaith housing loan at the time for only $200 cash. There was a program at the time, FHA, where the closing costs were included. It could be paid for by the seller, but you hear a lot of time today. And also, Interfaith Housing would put the bulk of the 3%. They would give that as a grant. Okay, and I explained that program to them. So he said, we want to buy the house for Christmas today. We want to buy the house for Christmas. Okay, so we went back down to 2nd Avenue, which is the main street in Hazelwood, right next to the steel plant. By the way, steel. You probably don't know, but steel was something that was made in this general region, in Buffalo, and Cleveland, and Pittsburgh, and surrounding areas, and it was a hard surface metal that used to be made here. So for people who don't know what steel is. So we go back down to 2nd Avenue. Okay? 2nd Avenue, I go to Joe's Coffee Shop. I take them to Joe's Coffee Shop because that becomes my office in the Hazelwood area. Because I didn't want to go all the way back to my office, didn't want to go to their house. I wanted to go someplace where we could get a sales agreement put together. Now, today's world, everybody knows this, you can go on Hanna right from the coffee shop and pull up the paperwork either on your phone or pull it up in hard copy with the copy machine, okay? Well, we didn't have Hanna then, okay? Even though we didn't have Hanna then, what I used to do, and we should still do it today just in case, you should have listing contracts in your car, you should have sales agreements in your car, you should have copies of cost sheets in your car, you should have all pertinent agreements that you might need to use, whether you're at the buyer's house or seller's house or listing, so you have that just in case they don't want to use technology, the buyer or seller. So I have, both ready to go. But today with Go Hanna, it's just so great to be able to pull it right up. And it's very simple. So we sit down in Joe's coffee shop, and it's a little side story here. Joe was a gentleman that had this coffee shop, and that's when Hazelwood was booming, his coffee shop there. And his son, 10 years later, went to Central Catholic High School and got a scholarship to go to the University of Washington, and play football. He graduated from the University of Washington in culinary science, and he started his own coffee shop. He didn't call it by Joe's, he called it by his last name, Starbuck, known as Starbucks. A little anecdotal story that things can happen. Not really, but it sounds good. So we sit down with the coffee and we go over the sales agreement. Now the sales agreement at that time was a half page. Now it's 13 pages, in some states it's 16 pages, so it's more detailed. But it was a basic of what you need in the sales agreement. Buyer's and seller's name, price they're going to pay, address of the property, and what the mortgage contingency is, and closing date. Very, very simple stuff. Very, very simple stuff, okay? But it's more detailed right now, so you have to go in. So we went over the sales agreement with the folks. We got the offer signed. They gave me the $200 in cash, a money order actually. We don't, it was a promissory note. They gave me a promissory note that I had promissory notes on. We don't use those anymore. So you either take cash or check, but promissory note or credit card, I guess, today. But, and we had the agreement on. So I then went to a payphone, okay? Payphone's something we don't use it. Everybody's got their own cell phones, but you had to use payphones then. And I do this today, and I tell everybody else to do this. I called the seller, Mr. and Mrs. Kirpopoulos, and I said, Mr. and Mrs. Kirpopoulos, I'm working to get an offer in your house from the Fountains, okay? Are you going to be there for the next hour or so, okay? And she says, we'll be up here all evening because I'm cooking dinner. I told you earlier we don't practice Christmas Eve until 2 weeks, and both of my kids I thought were coming home, so we got plenty of food here. We're just making dinner, okay? Very important. So I didn't tell her that I had an offer, because if I told her I had an offer, what would she say? What would her husband ask? And if it was another broker, what would they want to know? They'd want to know what the price was, okay? It takes away the whole point of the presentation, okay? Because that's what they want to, rush to the price. So I told them, as I tell people, I'm working on an offer. Can I come up in the next half hour or so? So I went back to the table for the Fountain, sat down with them, ordered another cup of coffee for everybody and some Cokes for the kids, and I said, I'm going to go up and get this house for you tonight. So Mr. Fountain says to me, he says, Hoddy, he says, do you think we could stay there with my family tonight, since we're buying the house today, and wake up for Christmas morning? And I said, I don't know. Let me see what I can do. So I went back up to the Kirpopoulos, sat down with them, had more coffee, signed the sales agreements, gave them all the closing cost sheets and everything. And I said, was there any chance the Fountains could come back and take another look at the house? Because they're just so enthralled with it. They're excited about buying this house on Christmas. Anyway, they could come back and look at the house. And she said, Ms. Kirpopoulos says, in fact, they can come back, now about 5 o'clock, she says, they can stay for dinner because I've got all this extra food cooked. They can stay for dinner. If you want to stay for dinner, then I got to get home. Okay, so I went back to the coffee shop, drove them back up to the house where their car was, took them back into the house, reintroduced everybody to everything, and they then agreed to stay for dinner, okay? Now, Mr. Fountain, when I said they could stay for dinner, asked me, can we stay all night again? And I said, well, you got to work that out. But if you believe in the miracle of Christmas, if you believe in Christmas and what can happen, I believe they stayed in the 2 bonus rooms on the 3rd floor. Never asked the question because I still believe in Santa Claus. So I believe that they stayed in the 2 bonus rooms and their family woke up for Christmas morning. Now, the part of all this story is that this is the greatest time for people to buy homes. It's the greatest time of the year for people to buy the American dream, to buy the Christmas dream, to buy the holiday gift of a lifetime. But we have to be the ones that are out there. We may not get them moved in for Christmas Day, but we got to be out there selling that dream that they're buying a house for Christmas, where they buy it on the 23rd of December and move in the 30th of January. They bought a house for Christmas. But we have to be the ones to go out there and call with excitement to your buyers regarding the great properties that are on the market and new listings that come on the market, and creating the American dream of home ownership for Christmas. So have a great holiday. If we don't see you, I invite everyone to the last of the Choo Choo Chow Chows on the 14th, both at the corporate office in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, and the home office in Cleveland, Ohio, both the same days on the 14th. And if you haven't bought your raffle tickets yet, or you haven't sold your raffle tickets, there's a few left. And we're looking forward on the 14th to giving away $25,000 to hopefully some great Howard Hanna agents and staff people who buy tickets. So have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season, and hope to see you very, very soon. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you.